moving then.
Okay. You can
Yeah.
get started.
All right. Hi, Michael. You're on mute. Uh-huh. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm going to call the meeting to order. This meeting will be live streamed, recorded, and available on the internet by visiting the county's website at www.thecounty.ca. This meeting will be concluded and conducted as a virtual electronic meeting in accordance with the county's procedural bylaw. So now I'm looking to the agenda, and I need, does anybody want to add anything to the agenda or no? Then can I have a motion to that the agenda for the Built and Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee meeting of August 23, 2023 be confirmed? Can I have the motion for that? Thank you, Michael. Second, John Hurst, and all in favor? Good. Hi, Monica. Just put it there. All right. So now, is there any disclosure of a pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? I will say, my mother's house is my house and her house, and it is in Wellington, and it's near the Drake, but the parking spots aren't not on our property, but I'll just let you know that I do have that interest there, just for the record. Now, yes.
Madam Chair, are you declaring a pecuniary interest, or are you just?
It's not a pecuniary interest, but I wanted people to know that I do have property. My mother's house and is my house too.
Bill
So.
will be the next stop in about 10 minutes. Oakville is next.
I can't understand him.
It was not. I don't think it was Councillor Bain speaking. I think it was the conductor or the announcement. So are you declaring a pecuniary interest on this matter?
I'll say yes.
Okay, so okay, I'll record that in the minutes, and then when the committee comes to the item, if you could hand over chairing of the meeting to Councillor Hirsch, and I will ask you to just refrain from participating.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So now the minutes of the previous meeting, they were circulated. Have you any errors or omissions that you've noted to bring to Anne's attention? No. Can I then have a motion for those minutes to be adopted as presented? Yes, Ross, and second, Lori. All right, all in favor? Okay, good. No announcements, Anne?
No announcements.
And no comments from the audience? Yes, we do have comments from the audience, don't we? No deputations, though. And do I understand correctly that Liz is going to be joining us, and she is requesting more than 3 minutes?
Yes. So Liz Driver is just joining the Zoom meeting right now, connecting to audio, and she has requested that the committee permit her to speak more than 3 minutes on this, on item 9.2.
Okay, I've read her submission, and I do think she needs to have a little bit more time to explain her position. So, so we'll allow you. What can I? What am I allowed to present to the committee for her to have time? Can we double it or what? Anne, is there any rule there? I don't want to break anything.
So the committee would have to pass a motion giving her extra time, and I would state in the motion how much more extra time she gets.
Okay, all right. So then can I have a motion from the group of somebody to have the time extended for Liz to Lori, you're willing to make that motion? And how many minutes, Liz, would you suggest? And Monica will be seconding it. How many minutes more do you want?
Just 6 minutes max.
All right, 6 minutes. So the motion will read, will double your minute time for this presentation, and all in yes, Anne?
A seconder and
I did. Lori presented it and Monica seconded. So all in favor? Yeah, okay, good. All right. Okay, so now we're over to you, Liz.
Okay, I need to share my screen. Let's see if I can make that happen.
I haven't started the clock yet.
Oh, great. Oh, thanks. Okay, can you see?
Yes.
All right. I don't know how to get that bar up above the picture, but, oh, hold on. I just have to get, there we go. Okay. Thank you so much for the privilege of having a few more minutes. I'm concerned that the committee does not have sufficient information to decide on this application as it stands. The ministry's conservation principles, the Picton Main Street HCD plan guidelines, and the Heritage Grant criteria all support the deferral of the application until the principles, guidelines, and criteria are met. The building has great significance. The bylaw calls it a prominent historical landmark. But interestingly, the 1989 bylaw, which precedes the 906 requirement to list attributes, still does note 4 entrances. So there were originally 3 shop fronts, so 3 doors, and a 4th door elaborately embellished with its surrounding transom and side lights led to the entrance hall. Now, the application package doesn't have recent photographs of the doors, so I took some on Monday. Here's the main door. It has 4 panels, all rectangles, and 1 nearly square glass pane. The double French doors have 1 nearly square panel each and 1 light per door. In your application package, you have what appears to be a catalog cut. And there is no drawing for each type of door that shows the door's scale with the shapes and proportions of the panels and glass relative to the proportion of the door. And because you don't have those drawings, you can't have any certainty that the replacements would be executed as said. The Picton Main Street HCD guidelines, in your application package, you only have the style. You don't have the guideline, which says the doors, the form and proportion of original or historic doors should be conserved. And if the original or historic doors are beyond repair, replacement should match the originals in design, size, proportion, glazing pattern, and detailing, or if appropriate, reference the historic form and proportions with modern design and materials. And the very first of the ministry's guiding principles is repair, conserve, rather than replace building materials, because minimal intervention maintains the heritage content. I believe that the application does not meet the general criteria for eligibility in the Heritage Grant Program. And I'm quoting here from the program: only projects described below will be considered: conservation of existing architectural elements that are in the bylaw, and reconstruction of existing elements normally beyond repair. And there's a very important note: replication of architectural features will only be considered when demonstrated that restoration is not feasible. And the doors do not, in my opinion, appear to be beyond repair, and the applicant has not demonstrated that conservation is not feasible. The applicant's reason for the door replacement is no longer air or watertight, but there are measures to improve door performance, and perhaps the most important one is a fine carpenter can replace a deteriorated bottom rail or adjust the existing threshold. And there are many other ways to deal with draft and water. So my final slide, there is much missing information as indicated in the application checklist. Most important missing information is number 6. There are no relevant plans, documentation, or studies. So my recommendation to the committee when you come to your discussion is to defer a decision on the application until the committee receives a condition report by a qualified person that assesses each of the 6 doors in the 4 door openings, because even if some doors are found to be beyond repair, others can be refurbished. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. All right, can we ask Liz questions, Anne?
Yes, you may.
Okay, anyone have some questions? Counselor Hurst.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Liz. Fantastic homework on this. I think many of us would not have, got into that depth of detail. Just a question, and I suppose I could look this up, but I thought maybe you would know. As you noted at the outset, the original heritage designation was before the time when attributes were required to be listed. Nevertheless, there is a block of text there which does contain the words that you mentioned. Does that inhibit us from insisting on, because if we go back to the applicant, obviously, there may be some, and that's what I would propose to do with this, is to say, what do you think about these comments? But if they resist that, we need to be sure that we can insist on that. So can you enlighten us perhaps as to how the new reg interacts with the old situation?
Well, I'm not an expert on that aspect, Councillor Hirsch, but it seems to me that that it should be a conversation between the committee and the applicant about the heritage value of the building, which has been protected in its entirety in the original designation bylaw. The power of that bylaw is really no different between then and now. It's still it's the whole property that's protected under the Act. It's just that since 2006, the development of these criteria made it easier for the committee, right? Made it easier for everyone to understand exactly what was important. But it seems to me that all of the guidelines, the ministry's guide principles about conservation, the HCD guidelines about doors, and of course, here's the thing I think for you is that this property was designated in 1989 and it's now included in the HCD plan. So you need to, when you go to the applicant, you've got the guidelines in the HCD plan, which explicitly, even though they're meant to refer to the character of the area, they don't explicitly refer to this property, but they do explicitly say, conserve doors. And if they're beyond normal repair, then you have other considerations. So I don't think there should be any issue in that respect.
Thank you, Liz. Anyone else with a question? Yes, Monica. You're on mute.
Having tried to get some windows rebuilt, I'm curious how easy it is or where people get qualified people to do A, the assessment, and B, where they find people that would rebuild those kind of doors or fix those doors.
Well, I believe there are fine carpenters in the county and the region. There are heritage consultants. So I think a fine carpenter could do an assessment, doesn't have to be a heritage consultant. But in the past, the county had a heritage consultant on contract, if you will, to help provide advice to the committee and also to interact with the owner. And I think of another building during my term on PHAC at the west end of Main Street, and the owner wanted to make some alterations. The heritage consultant went and spoke to the person, discussed the issues, came up with a solution that everyone was happy with. And in some ways, I like to think of this building as more part of the HCD and that process. where you're trying to encourage people, but it seems to me it's very obvious in this application that the owner was concerned about drafts and water and just pursued replacement. The owner hasn't put in the application all the things that should have been considered or were in the check boxes, and so doesn't perhaps realize the guidelines. So didn't start from the right place, if you will, in starting to do this. And my experience previously on PHAC is we have often asked owners to go back and just do a little bit more work and see what they can do. I mean, it's not easy to find any kind of contractor these days, but the proposal as it stands is for $23,000 for replacement. Imagine if you applied that. This is not a consideration for the committee, Monica, but you asked me, so I'm going to say, imagine if you applied that money to refurbishment, what you could do. So, and the other thing is, without a heritage grant, the work, whatever the, replacement would become even more daunting. And I think if you look very carefully at the heritage grant application criteria, the application as it stands doesn't meet the criteria. And the wonderful thing about the heritage grant program is it conforms to the heritage permit process. Those two elements of the permit, the heritage permit and the heritage grant are all aligned with the Ontario Heritage Act and the ministry's principles. There are no inconsistencies between all of those pieces. So I've just tried to, and I just felt I felt compelled to make the comments today, because looking at the application, I just don't think there's enough information to make a decision. You can't be, you don't know what the contractor is going to do because you haven't got a drawing that shows how those panels, the wood panels, will relate to the proportion of the door or the windows. And also there's the depth of the panels. If you look at these doors are inset or recessed, and all around, like the two sides and the top have these magnificent wooden panels themselves that are echoing the door, and the robustness of the shape and the depth of the molding. That's all part of the value. And what I'm worried about is if they put replacement doors in, the contractor, the manufacturer, won't necessarily respond to the depth of the molding. So there's a lot to think about once you get the information.
Thank you.
Just-
Yeah, I have 3 or 4 people who
Yeah,
have
yeah,
waited
go.
their hands.
Mhm.
So Michael has been waiting for a while. So Michael, and you're on mute. Can you get us audio? There.
Yeah. Sorry, I'd like to follow up a little bit from what Monica was saying. I think given these days where it is sometimes difficult to find people to do things, maybe we have to give some thought. The reference was made previously to having a heritage consultant, whether that sort of position could be recreated. Do we have perhaps a list of people that we think are capable of doing this kind of work? If we're going to have a conversation with the owner, are there suggestions that can be made to them? The kind, position to do this, are
Yeah.
considered competent to do.
So I'm happy to answer that question.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Liz, answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Many municipalities and committees develop lists of good contractors who are good with heritage work, that you could decide to do that, but you're not going to have that list ready in time to deal with this application. At the same time, I don't believe that, I mean, the committee and committee members can always help people. I think, and if you yourselves don't have a list of good contractors to hand for heritage work, you could suggest that the owners speak to, oh my gosh, who has, and I'm going to have to think of the name and send it to you. People who have had really good heritage work done, they know the contractors who did their properties, right? You know, those are you don't necessarily have to have the name to hand, but you can direct the owner to people who've had recent good work done.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I actually think that the committee, it's really important not to allow the challenges that the owner is going to face to enter into your application of principles and guidelines and the county's own legislation, the bylaw, right? These things will be sorted out in due course once the research is done, but the research has not been done in this case.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Hurst. Yep, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I fear that we're heading into the conversation on this item, and that's going beyond what we should be doing. But I do have one more question for Liz that can help with this question. Liz, do you remember the name of the fellow who did the windows for the Hudson House? Because the windows for the Hudson House have been recreated by a very fine carpenter to the design, the same design as the originals. And you know, we could perhaps provide that name to the applicant.
Sure. So Peter Graham installed them, but those windows were actually made by a Mennonite firm in Kitchener. But, you know, here's the thing, if you send accurate drawings to that company, they can reproduce beautiful windows or doors. I believe they do doors. I don't know why they couldn't, at a cheaper price than normal. So that is one. Alec, oh, house on Main Street. There are people who've done wonderful work on their properties, and that's the kind of advice. Get the owner speaking to those other people and find out which contractor did their work.
Thank you, Liz. Any other questions for Liz? No, thank you very much, Liz, for bringing this to our attention. So we will, do we want to get a motion to receive the comments from Liz? And so I need a motion. Monica moves, second. Ben, thank you. Oh, Arjan, I'll get you next time. Is it all in favor? Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so we will keep Liz's presentation in mind and until we get to the discussion on that proposal. Okay, so now we can move on to correspondence, and I see that we got circulated on the comments by the Ontario Association of Cemetery and Funeral Professionals. I thought these comments were appropriate to be going out to the full committee because it's looking at the planning area on cemeteries and what the OACFP feels that the changes to the Planning Act are some horrible things are going to happen there, they think, because they're not realizing what role cemeteries play in society, and they're not allowing for the land to be designated for the urban areas, and they're trying to point out, and I hope you have read it or will read it, how much that the cemetery means to the people who are burying their family members there and can't go to it. If you put a burial ground or a cemetery 50 miles outside of the urban area, there will be many people who can't get to it simply because they're not going to take a taxi. They can't get there every day. It's just too far away and inconvenient, and it takes away from the purpose of having that memorial area. So anyway, I thought I should get that out there because it's a current topic, and the cemetery task force will be looking at that in more detail. But it was well written and makes all the points that they should be making for the to the government, and we'll see what's happened when it comes, do they make changes or not? So that's their correspondence. Anybody have a question for that on that one? No. All right, good. Okay, so now we'll move on to 9.1. Verbal report from Stacy Hammond. Are we having that today? Anne?
Yes, we are. And Stacy's in
Oh,
the,
there. Hi, Stacy.
Hi,
Nice to see you again.
yes, you too.
So you're going to report on the estate of Gerald Malcolm Miller and his is it a bequest to Bowerman McFall Cemetery?
Mhm.
Yes. Okay, good.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning to the committee. Thanks for having me today. Director Goheen is currently enjoying some much well-deserved time off this week, so I get the pleasure of bringing you this nice news. This past fall, the municipality was notified that the estate of Gerald Malcolm Miller had bequeathed $35,000 to Bowerman and McFall Cemetery. So that's the one on County Road 1 in Hillier Ward. And we've just gotten some news from the executor of the will that they're ready to do some payouts. So the CAO, we're just coordinating some signatures right now on those forms that essentially just confirm that the municipality doesn't have any questions or concerns and is prepared to receive the funds. So our kind of next step is that staff would like to collaborate with the family on a way to commemorate the gift. So maybe planting a tree or installing a bench or some other method that the family might prefer. So with that being said, we've come to the committee to ask for two things. One is that the committee make a formal recommendation to council to have the mayor write a letter of appreciation to the family, obviously for this generous gift. And two is that the committee makes a formal recommendation to have council direct staff to proceed with consulting with the family on what a suitable commemoration might be. So yeah, that's the update from operational services, and I can turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Stacy. Did they direct in the will to where they wished it to be applied? Did they say wanted it to go into the care and maintenance fund, or is it for operational use, or is it to the decision of the management group?
I believe it's up to us.
Okay.
I would have to go back and look at that wording specifically, but I believe it's up to us. So that's something, once we get the direction from council to go ahead and start talking with the family about the commemoration, then the next step will be discussing how we want to use those funds.
Yeah. Okay. Because we've had bequests at Glenwood, and they are specific sometimes, and then they are not specific at other times. And I think that you're looking at the commemoration recognition. We have just got some new benches, and I think they are cheaper and prettier and nicer to maintain than some of the granite benches. And we've had some public test them out, and they're very comfortable to sit in. Whereas the granite ones are pretty hard. And it will be a short sitting spell on the granite. So if you want to look at some of the materials, you can contact Casey, where our source where we get them, and they are cost effective and very, very heavy and durable. So so that might be how you might do that with the bench. A tree in Bowerman might be difficult because you're really got a lot of bedrock there.
Okay.
So the tree will struggle in a dry year to get much water when there's very little overburden. So, and I don't like to plant a tree when I know it's going to be dead because we can't care for it, or the ground isn't right. So I would just caution you about that, because we know from backhoe digging there, sometimes it takes us like 8 hours to dig a grave because of the bedrock in the one section of that area. So, yeah, just a
Okay, thank you. We'll keep
heads,
that in
heads,
mind.
heads up there.
Okay.
So does
I
anybody?
just have a quick look through the, sorry, Madam Chair, while you were talking there, just to look at the wording, and it doesn't specify
Yeah.
how the gift is to be used. So
Okay,
we'll be at liberty to decide how best to use the funds.
yeah, good. All right. Does anybody else have any questions for Stacy or thoughts on what we can be doing for commemorating there? Yes, Monica.
I should know this, but is their sign up? Is the sign up for that cemetery?
They have a sign. It's the signage issue that you've been looking at. We had started a process of putting standard signs on every cemetery that the county manages. So there was a consistency, and that when you saw the sign, you would know that this was the cemetery. And I don't know if they all got done. We started them and they were in the budget. So much each year was put in the budget so they could get like 10 or 20 done one year and then 10 or 20 of the, and it was started and some are up and the signage is lovely. And I have asked did they complete that project? It was a phased in project over 2 or 3 years. And we lost track of it when that committee disbanded because of the election. We lost track of where that project went. So I don't know if they have their the signage that this committee wanted on every cemetery, but they do have a nice sign there, Bowerman McFall sign there anyway. Yeah, right by the road. Sometimes they place them where you can't see them till you're right on them, but it is signed fairly well and is right close to the road, on the roadside, so it's easy to see. And yeah, so we will ask, I'll ask Adam Goheen to give us a report back on that signage project, where how many they got done, if all of them, great, but I don't think all are done.
Madam Chair, just the reason I asked was simply that if that one hadn't been done, it might be, might move up the priority list to be done so that, and use these funds for it. That was all.
Well, yeah, but then we'll come back to the question of all the other cemeteries are getting them. We made it a commitment to get all the signage for the cemeteries. And they had a fund set aside. So I would first like to see what happened to the fund.
Sure. Yeah.
And then, because, you know, yeah, okay. John, or Councilor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just quickly, I like the idea of a bench, as long as it's not one of those $2,000 benches that the county insists on buying. And Stacy's smiling. You can do a nice bench for a lot less than $2,000. I wouldn't want to see this whole gift be spent on the commemoration. It can be rather probably best used for ongoing care, which is where we have a shortfall of money.
Yeah.
And I can be the mover for these two motions if you like.
Okay, so we have it's a long motion with, and then you have it covered. So John, do you want to, and do we have to read all the motion out? John,
Yes, we do. And
All
we
right,
need
John.
to there as well.
Sure, I'll go ahead and read it. That the verbal report from Stacy Hammond, Administrative Assistant to the Director of Operations regarding the estate of Gerald Malcolm Miller and the Bowerman McFall Cemetery be received. That the committee recommends council direct the mayor to write a letter of appreciation on behalf of the municipality to the family of Gerald Malcolm Miller, and that the committee recommends council direct staff to facilitate a commemorative recognition installation at the Bowerman McFall Cemetery in consultation with the family of Gerald Malcolm Miller.
And I think John, you've had your hand up to be second. So there you are. John is seconding that. All in favor? All right, good. All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Stacy. See you around.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're on to 9.2. And this is the heritage application that Liz came and filled us in on. So, does anybody like to speak to this? What we should do? Yes, Councillor John.
My initial inclination is to essentially take the information that Liz submitted and have it go back to the applicant and ask for their views on that suggestion. And Liz has just advised me by email that she will get us the name of the Mennonite firm that
Mhm.
did the windows at the Hudgen House and to verify that they do doors as well.
Mhm.
And I think as she mentioned, the cost of that almost undoubtedly would be much less than, or less anyway, than the $23,000 that these characters want to do new product. Anyway, I think if we just go back and ask the applicant to respond to that and make that suggestion, once we have the name, that might be a good approach. I don't see that there's an urgency to this. They haven't seemed to indicate that it's urgent. We do sometimes have urgent situations, but this doesn't appear to be one of them.
Anyone else likes to comment? I think that sounds like a good suggestion, John.
Yep.
I think that I appreciate getting that information from Liz. If the situation is that the bottom rail of the door is a bit soft from moisture, there are ways of fixing that with epoxy. You know, in fact, that might violate the historical significance of it, but you don't have to get a whole new door. The windows at the chapel, when we brought them in to repair water damage, they did it and came right on the spot and did repaired the damage in situ and put in new wood and it was been very successful. So I think that they do need to think about this a little more. One point I'd like to make is that I think the doors are part of the most distinctive features of that building. And that is the heritage value. It's when you look at it and you see these distinctive doors that you don't see on the next building down the street. And to take away the design is taking away the history that we're trying to preserve. So I really think they do need to sit down and think how they can preserve that design style cost effectively. So I would support the motion to refer it back to staff. So John, that's your motion. Oh, you're on mute, John.
Yeah, to have staff refer it back to the applicant and provide information as to possible contractors who could do refurbishment rather than pure replacement.
Okay, seconder. Okay, my screen just lit up with hands. Councillor Brainy, I haven't had you do a second or first or any of it. So there you are. Emily, do you have any questions for that? Everybody in favor of that motion? Vote. Yep. Okay, good. Emily, are you clear? All right. Yeah, you're on mute too. I can't hear you. No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Through you, Madam Chair. So just to clarify, the committee would like, I guess, some architectural drawings showing the depth of the crown molding, and then as well some kind of structural report going over which doors can be refurbished and which would require replacement.
Okay.
Yeah, Madam Chair, perhaps Emily hasn't seen Liz's presentation, which has all that, and we have that file, so we could send that file on.
Yes.
To the applicant.
Yeah, I can't hear you again, Emily.
Through you, Madam Chair, I did see the presentation. I just want to clarify that is what is asked for, those two things.
Okay. And did you hear Emily clearly? Yep. Okay.
So Emily, I will forward you the minutes of this meeting. And you can, all the feedback that the committee received today, including the comments from the audience, will be in there.
Okay,
Well, through the chair, I just want to clarify what is needed because I know there was mention in the presentation of inadequate information having been provided as part of the application package. So we did provide facade photos. We also provided a drawing which shows the placement of the window, provides details such as materials, thickness of glass, etc. So if there's anything else missing, then specifically, that would be good to know right now.
So I'm looking at in the materials that I have, I don't see the moldings around the doors and windows. Liz talked about that's the framing of the framing, and I didn't see that in there in the permitting process. So you can Liz will be talking to Emily, and can she or what?
I think I can relay the message from Liz to Emily.
Okay.
Maybe it would be helpful if Councillor Hirsch, if you just reread your motion.
Sure. What would you like it to say, Anne?
Regarding the replacement and the refurbishment, the difference between the two.
Yeah, I guess the motion then is to ask staff to refer the application back to the applicant for them to consider the comments made by Liz Driver in respect of refurbishment rather than replacement, and especially taking account of the need for accurate drawings of what is proposed. And I would just add to Emily's point, the only in our information package, unless Emily, you have something that we don't have, it's a 1989 photo that's on the designation. Liz has submitted, current photos of the building, which is far more suitable to be looking at.
I think that the essence is the rationale of why they can't be refurbished rather than totally replaced. I mean, if these are original doors or close to original, they were built in there a long time ago. They are probably solid wood, and so the solid wood can be refurbished. You can take a rail out and put a new solid wood rail in, and if that's all the section that's rotten from the rain coming in, then that's what you do. That's what we did with the chapel windows. One got rotted, and they just delicately got it out and got something new in, and away we went. So it can be done, and so we need to know why. If it's if the whole door rotten and falling out, or is this just as she says, refurbishment rather than replacement?
Yeah, and through you, Madam Chair, I'm not in disagreement that there's more work to be done. I just want to be clear, because if the applicant is referred back to the presentation and they can't glean from that what in addition they need to do, I want to be clear about what they need to do. So I think the structural report I'm clear on. I'm not completely clear on what is needed in terms of the door detail, because like I said, there is included as part of the package a photo of 4 doors one of them being circled, which shows like the placement of the windows, the crown molding. So, and as well, a quote directly before that that provides information about materials and whatnot. So I want to be clear, are these architectural drawings that the committee's wanting then for these new doors?
The only picture of the doors that I have in my package on page 29 of 63, they are not showing the transoms above the door. So is the transom being replaced too, or just the door? So that I would like to, I think that's where Liz was saying that those pictures don't cover all the doors, because the doors are all different. Only one, I think, has arched, or I didn't memorize Liz's presentation, but I know they don't all have arches, and they have transoms and different transoms, and they have side lights, one door. So how's he dealing with all of that?
So he's not, so the applicant's not looking to change anything, alter the openings. It's simply putting new doors in the existing openings. So lighting's not going to be changed, nothing like that. It's just new doors.
It's essentially the form of the doors, and when you look
Yes.
closely at the moldings,
Yeah.
the one in the picture, and I used to sell doors at Home Depot, is the one in the picture looks like it's an inset square. There's nothing sticking out, whereas the ones that are currently on the building have that surface mounted molding, which adds to the width, and that's an important feature for the designation. So they need to demonstrate how they would exactly replicate the form, the depth and form of the door.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we have the motion and it's been passed. And
Yes, I saw hands
Yeah.
go up.
okay, good. All right, so now we're on the master list 9.3 of permits. An updated list. So what are the updates there? Anne? Or whoever?
So Emily, could you provide the committee with the changes to the updated list, please?
Sure, just let me pull that up. Okay, so the list has been updated to reflect the permit that the committee granted for the new window opening at Bowery Street, and which was approved by council, and then as well the permit that we just discussed.
Okay. All right, so that is 48 Bowery Street has been approved by council.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, all right, okay. All right, so that's any questions for Emily on this? Okay, then can I have a motion to receive the master list of permits? Thank you, Ross, and thank you, Lori, for seconding that. All in favor? Yeah, okay, very good. Now 9.4. The Heritage Permit Task Team regarding planning of A823 Drake Devonshire on Wharf Street, Main Street in Wellington, and I will sign off on talking on that one. And I'll go to mute, and John, it's your
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah. So we have written comments from the, is it a subcommittee? I don't remember how we do this. Is there somebody who has looked at this want to speak to it? Mr. Miller.
I'm on that.
You've frozen. Okay.
Two parts to it. Hello?
I
Can you
think
hear
we
me?
can hear you now. Give it a try again.
Okay. There are two parts to the application. One is for the parking and the other is for the swimming pool, the addition. I think, in my own view, the parking variance is quite minor. It doesn't seem to have much impact on anything. The addition is on the lake side, obviously, looks out over the lake. I don't know that that's the issue. There is the expansion of the parking lot, however, which I didn't see in the original thing that I got. So I don't know, that may be something for some discussion. I believe they're trying to expand the main parking lot for the Drake as well.
Okay, thank you. I think, and my looking at this, and I can tell you that council is receiving an awful lot of correspondence from people in Wellington about this proposal, because it's going, since we approved the bylaw rezoning the hotel property, this proposal, characterized as a minor variance, is going 2 stories higher, including the pool and entertainment area on top of the building. And that goes up to 16.9 meters, whereas the zoning only allows 12 meters height. So you quite correctly in your comments here noted that the increase to the maximum height, if approved, would have negative impacts on sight lines to the lake and create noise issues. I guess noise is not a heritage question, but certainly the sightline issue is part of heritage and part of the HCD, which this would be.
Well, it's not an
It's not.
well, I mean, Wellington's not an HCD at this point, is it?
Not yet, although we're going to
So
find
that's-
out we're going to find out very soon. We're only a couple of weeks away from the hearing.
Yeah. Well, that may change. That may change everything if it's declared an HCD. That may change the whole focus here. I think it's now at this point, it's the noise issue, which is not a heritage issue. It's a zoning or bylaw issue with respect to that. It's really not a heritage issue. The addition to the hotel doesn't strike me as a heritage issue. It's a zoning issue.
Well, if we discount the HCD concept, then we would have no heritage comment then? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that if Wellington becomes an HCD, that we got to go back square one, start over. I mean, with their plan, obviously. Hell, that's a violation of a zoning permit, as I understand it, not a heritage issue. So we're kind of in limbo here, are we not, until we know whether Wellington is an HCD or not?
That's true. Strictly speaking, yeah, we're in limbo. I mean, we could still comment that we think that this increase in height would go against what's provided for in the pending HCD, just to make a comment. Otherwise, there'd be nothing to say. Ross, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, like in terms of it being like a minor variance, I couldn't find, and maybe I missed it, whether there's sort of limitations on what can be considered in terms of scope under a minor variance. And also I would say like the sightline issue, I think you could consider that in a broad sense to be like a heritage issue in terms of somebody looking out over the downtown area with this now much larger building in the foreground?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth us making a comment. And I would only note that the last paragraph, I think it's the last paragraph, that notes that there were bylaw amendments granted in 2022. They're not relevant to this consideration. So I would say we don't need to include that sort of caveat. I'd be perfectly happy for us to say as the committee that we think this excess height, which makes it essentially into a 5-story building, is not in keeping with the heritage character of the area, and certainly wouldn't be in keeping with the pending HCD. The alternative being we don't have to make any comment to planning at all. Monica.
When I first saw this one, I had to wonder if it was a Comfort Inn that was going in there, right? Like it somehow the Drake has this panache about it that says, oh yes, they've done good things, blah, blah, blah. But there's been a lot of conversation, and I grew up in the area, so I'm very biased. I will admit that right off the bat. But if I had property there, if I lived there, I cannot envision, based on the pillars that the council have established in the strategic plan about protecting stuff like the cultural and rural way of life. To me, Wellington is still a rural village, and I can't think of any five-story buildings. I do know that when I was on council, we gave permission to extend a church at the end of Baker Road. And if that decision came back again, I would absolutely have said no, because from the other side of Hikes Bay, it is a ridiculous looking building relative to the rural environment. It's like a barn, but it's not a barn. You know, it doesn't fit with the cultural landscape. So I guess that's how I feel about this one, going up another number of stories. It doesn't fit with the cultural landscape. We could say the heritage bit. I don't think it fits with the social landscape. I don't know whether that's even that has a quotation mark around it, if that's a thing or not. But to me, it's a social landscape as well. So however we word it, I think we should have something said about our reaction to it. And I don't see it minor. Somehow I don't envision that as a minor variance. The Edward building also asked, when it was being built, it asked to go up an extra story, and they did a setback of the top story so that from the main street, it looks like 4 stories instead of 5 stories. But if you're over on Mary Street side, it's a 5-story building. If you're up on the hill and you're looking down, it's a 5-story building. But that was our concession on it. I don't know how you do it in that tiny space where the Drake Devonshire is. Anyway,
Yeah, I'm sure their argument is that because it's not right at the street, it's already set back from the street, that they're okay on the height. That's probably their view. And it is technically it's a minor variance because it's only a height variance. They're already zoned for what it is they want to do. But it's pretty sneaky, I think, is what most of the comment we're getting as council is, that this is a pretty sneaky way to do what they're doing. Ben, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just to sort of move things along, I'm comfortable proceeding with the kind of comment that we're circling around here, that this isn't in keeping with the proposed heritage district there, and at least to put something on the record and then pick it back up to the wise counsel of the councillors. But yeah, I don't think we're outside of our purview by making this comment, even though the HCD hasn't been formally approved yet. I think that's the advisory part of what we're doing. So I would support or move something in that direction.
Okay, I guess, Anne, I think we need, I mean, we have the written comments, which I guess came from Michael. Do we need to add something to that, a reference to the potential HCD?
Yes. So if I could explain a little bit of procedure for this and give you some background. So the application was sent to the Heritage Permit Task Team for review while you were on that summer break between the July meeting and this meeting. So the Heritage Task Team has provided their comments to Emily. But if you'd like to add further comments, then you could make a motion, and I have something written just very quickly to add your concerns about the additional height in the area. And then once you pass the motions, the comments will be directed to Emily or not Emily, sorry, whoever the planner is for the file to communicate to the proponents.
Okay, I'd be prepared to hear what you have written, and then we'll see if there's a mover.
Okay, it's very simple. So it would read that the committee add that the additional height is not in keeping with the heritage character of the area. And that would be the second clause to the motion that's presented on the agenda.
Okay, Monica.
I think it goes beyond the heritage area. It's not just the history. It is the social character of the community, which doesn't include having a big hotel in their midst, would be the way I look at it. So I know we have heritage stuff on the books that we can work with, but I think that there might be elements of and I don't have them in my fingertips by any means, but elements of the municipal council's strategic plan that says this doesn't fit with our goals. This doesn't fit with our goals for the county. And I think there has to be more than just, I would like to see more than just the heritage to have it stronger.
So I would say, and if we referred specifically to the Heritage Conservation District, because it does include the whole social aspect, the whole cultural aspect, far more than just heritage considerations
Okay,
in it.
thank you.
Yeah.
So it's not in keeping with the Heritage Conservation District or the proposed Heritage Conservation District.
District plan.
Okay.
That would work for me.
I have a question.
Michael. Oh,
Because I don't think, quite frankly, this committee, that it, can extend its comments beyond that it's in conflict with the Heritage Conservation District. As to the broader nature of the county, I don't know if that's entirely within the purview of the committee. Those are comments as private citizens, I suppose. I'm looking to the future. We may find this whole height business challenged anyway, because if we talk about further development, affordable housing, and all kinds of things, you are going to have to create some multiple story buildings. I don't know where that fits into this down the road, but nevertheless, I think we have to limit our comments to that. This height extension would be in conflict with the general concept of heritage conservation and the current cultural makeup, if you like, or the current cultural architectural structures of that particular area of the county. I mean, if we go too far in our comments, we risk opening up all sorts of things. I think we need to focus clearly on what we're tasked with doing, is what I'm saying. Just a thought.
So Anne, can you read what you've got now, and let's see if we're okay.
Sure, I'll read the entire motion. So that the comments from the Heritage Permit Task Team regarding planning file A8 2023 Drake Devonshire GP Inc. 2024 41 43 45 Wharf Street and 266 Wellington Main Street, Wellington minor variance be received, and that the committee add that the additional height is not in keeping with the proposed Wellington Heritage Conservation District plan.
Yeah, so that limits our comments to that. Monica.
So is there a sense, maybe somebody knows, is there a sense that I would sense that the Drake are trying to get this through before the Heritage District thing is approved? Is that right?
You think?
You think?
So I'm not sure. I asked the other day when the Committee of Adjustment is scheduled to meet on this, and it may be, I think, do we have a date, Anne? I think it's, somebody said mid-September. Because if it's mid-September, it may be after the decision of the OLT.
I don't have a date. Maybe Emily might know.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that the staff and the proponents are aiming for September 20th.
Okay. And I'm also been led to believe that there actually will be a settlement at the OLT hearing. That it won't be like a full-blown hearing, but there may be a settlement between the applicant and the county. In which case, we may well know the result of that before this comes to Committee of Adjustment. I hope so. If there's nothing else, then shall we? Is there a seconder? Sorry, or mover and a seconder? I forget who moved. I think we had Ben moving and Ross as a seconder. All in favor then? Okay. So we can let Madam Chair back into the room.
I'm back. Okay. So we're ready to move on.
Yeah, we decided to build a hotel on your old property, Sandy.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, come and try that. Good to hear that. All right, so we're on to 9.5. All right, Emily, you're going to give us an update on the Heritage Master Plan.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, I have a brief update, which is that we have put out a request for proposal for the Master Heritage Plan, and I believe that the date on that ends sometime in September for the proposals, so that we're hoping to have someone consulted selected to commence work sometime in October.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. Any questions for Emily? Okay, so that now I need a motion that the verbal update from Emily Overholt, planner regarding Heritage Master Plan be received. Thank you, Ross. Anybody want to second that one? Thank you, Arjan. Very good. All in favor? Okay, there we go. All right, so now the Heritage Designation Working Group verbal update. Who will be making that?
I can speak to that. So our working group has met twice. We have 226 properties on the non-designated property list. We've divided over 9 people. Some of the properties are in the Picton Heritage Conservation District, which will create less work, and some are in Wellington if it becomes a heritage district. Then that will create less work as well. Some properties are, the odd property is a duplicate, and there's the odd one that's already heritage listed. So that will also reduce the list once we clean up that list. We are in the process of cleaning up the addresses because several of the addresses were incorrect. So once we can clean up the addresses and clean up the list, then we're looking to send a letter to homeowners. Our working plan, just to give a quick overview of our work plan is we did a preliminary screening of the properties that we have. And we've got templates to enter our information into. So next step, our next stage is communication with the property owners, and then we're doing a secondary screening to get more detailed information about those properties as well. Yeah, it's moving along quite well. Everyone's working really hard on it. And yeah, we hope to have some movement. Once we can clean up these addresses and clean up the properties that shouldn't be on this list, we'll be able to move forward from that. Does anybody else have anything to add?
Councillor John Hirsch. You're on mute, John.
Yeah,
Oh, there
thank you,
you are.
Madam Chair. Thanks, Maria. I would just add how impressed I was. At our first meeting, we selected Ernie Margetson as chair, which was only appropriate since he knows every building in the county anyway. And Ernie had an idea, which I think was a good one, and that was to sort of immediately divvy the properties up by ward amongst the members of the working group. And so they were all set off to do drive-bys or whatever they wanted to do to assess sort of current condition. And that was actually concluded, right, Lori, within a month, which was like everybody reported back, you know, that they'd seen all the properties. Some had even spoken to property owners who came out wondering what the heck they were doing looking at their house. And so that was really good. And the other good news is there's only maybe a couple, I think, we found that either don't exist or there's one that's had a rather serious fire, and I suppose there may be a debate as to whether it will be restored or taken down. But virtually everything else is there and in you know, some kind of decent condition. I'll just report separately on base 31. We decided to make base 31 the old Camp Picton property a separate project, and I undertook to contact Tim Jones, who is the CEO of base 31, because we have a connection. And good news is I am meeting with him on the 31st of this month with a couple of the other partners in the base 31 project, and they are interested in pursuing some form of designation. But I just learned yesterday, talking to the CAO, Marcia Wallace, that what they might be more inclined to do is to create their own heritage conservation district up there, which could be done. You can make a heritage conservation district anywhere, and that might give it an additional cachet. So they may, at this meeting on the 31st, say to us that they would like to, within our time frame for doing this work, have the property taken off the undesignated list, and they would make a commitment, and we would seek that commitment from them, probably in writing, that they were willing to work with us to pursue creating Heritage Conservation District. I've also learned that they have now acquired and I didn't even know this before, if you know where the paintball outfit is, those two properties, which are kind of the other side of the airport runway, base 31 has acquired that. And at least one of those buildings is a vintage building as well. So that'll all get considered. So I think positive news in the case of base 31, and we'll see where that goes sometime after that meeting on the 31st, and I'll report back on that. But no, I agree with Lori. I think this is going quite well so far.
Well, thank you for those updates. It sounds like you're making progress, and that's nice. It's a very big file and lots of work, and it's nice to see you tackle it with such enthusiasm, and we await your next update. So I'll need a motion that the verbal update on the Heritage Designation Working Group be received. Somebody like to make that motion? John, thank you. Second, Benjamin. All right, all in favor? Okay, there we go. Now 9.7. We are changing the date of our next meeting from December 6th to December 13th. So we need a motion to make that official. Lori, I'm making the motion that the committee meeting be scheduled on me moved from December 6th to December 15th, and a seconder.
13th.
13th, sorry, yes, 13th. Ben, I think, was his hand up as a seconder. So it's the 6th to the 13th, yep. And all in favor? Okay, good. Now
Everybody
the-
wear a Santa Claus hat that day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the Built and Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee work plan. And we need to see how we're moving along. So, Anne, did you want to walk us through that?
Absolutely. Let me just take a moment to share my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen right now?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I have a couple of updates. We do have staff coming to your next meeting, September 6th, to talk about the enforcement protocol. So if you remember back in June, on June 14th, you passed a motion asking staff to come to a meeting to talk about the different options for enforcement for those who contravene the Ontario Heritage Act and Heritage Conservation District. We will have staff coming to the next meeting to speak on the different options.
Good.
As you heard from Emily today, the update on the Heritage Master Plan RFP. So this would be considered complete unless you want to keep it on your radar for further discussion. And the next item is the public arts policy. So Chris Palmer presented to the committee back on June 14th. And that's when you approved the Heritage Properties and Conservation District guidelines, which is now posted on the municipal website. With respect to the art plan, council approved a moratorium on permanent public arts installations on municipal property. They did approve procedures for temporary art installation on municipal property for the time being, and they approved the work that Chris and staff are doing in developing the public art policy. So again, this is, unless the committee would like a follow-up on this item, I could consider this completed. And then just the last, so the replacement of the Hayward Long Reach Lookout Heritage Designation plaque. The committee asked staff to procure the replacement of the plaque. Council did approve that July 25th, and the planning staff are working to replace that plaque right now. Other than that, I don't think there's much. Okay. And then this one is just for the committee's information. I always track the applications that the Heritage Permit Task Team reviews. So I just keep track of that just for your information. So that's been updated. Oh, Sandy, I think you might be on, you're on mute. I hear you.
Okay, so I think we're on to, we need to get a motion to receive the work plan this be received. Okay, thank you, Council. Oh, yes,
Could I
John.
just make I'll do that too, but could I just make a comment on the first item, which is we're going to have at our next meeting, talking about enforcement of
Mhm.
permits. This is really, really important. At one of our heritage designation working group meetings, different people pointed out seeing, I think it was Ernie actually, that permits are not being followed. So the Falconer House, probably everyone's seen the work that's been done with the Falconer House in Picton by
Yeah.
Alex Fida. They were supposed to, the permit said that they were supposed to restore the stucco. They took off the old stucco, they were supposed to replace it. Well, they decided to leave it evidently as open stonework, which might be a nice alternative, but that's not what the permit said. And I think Terra Hall, there was a permit that we had issued a couple of years ago for Terra Hall. They had put another addition on that was not involved in the permit. So we need to somehow get this in gear. So I'm very much looking forward to next month when we can try to put something in place. Because right now, if you read the permits, that's all very nice, but there is no enforcement tool. There's no mechanism, and we need to have one. That's all I want to say.
I agree with you, Councillor Hurst, that it needs to be tightened up considerably. Okay, so I need a motion, and you'll do the motion. Anne, did you have any? No.
And I just picked up on something that you said earlier, Sandy, and I want to make sure that we captured in the minutes if that's the direction of the committee. So you were asking about staff providing an update on the gateway signage for the cemeteries.
Yes.
You want to
Yes.
put that in as a motion so we can get it on Adam's radar?
Okay, so I think somebody else has to make the motion for me. I don't think I can make a motion. So can we make a motion that we get an update on how the signage rollout for the cemeteries, municipally managed cemeteries is working, and R. John is making the motion, and the seconder is Ben Thornton. Thank you. Got to be fast with your hands there. Okay, everybody in favor? All right, good. Okay, so then.
And then the main motion as amended.
Pardon me, and the
main motion.
The main motion be, okay, yes, all right, that it be received. That the, okay, the discussion. We didn't do that one, right? Or the work plan? No. Okay, did somebody make the motion?
It could be the same people.
Same people? Okay, R. John and Ben, they're agreeable today. Or most days anyway. All right, so that's it. Our next meeting is September 6th. And I'll be in contact with the cemetery task force members, workforce members for our meeting. I just will do it a little bit further out. So we don't have to cancel it for my mom. So anyway,